this week. We are. Wait, are we actually live? Let me see. Give me 1 second to make sure.
Maybe.
I think I messed up something with the settings. Give me 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, I think we're live now. Okay, let me double check to make sure that I'm not being silly. Yeah, we're live. Okay, great.
Okay. Were we
So,
live the whole time?
you know what? Maybe we were. It's okay. We can cut it out of the
There.
audio stream at least. Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
let's start all over again.
Yeah,
We're gonna pretend that this never
that
happened.
didn't happen. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of WrestleWatch. I am Ryan.
I'm Doug. How are you all doing today?
And for the first time ever today, we're saying hi to you all.
Yes.
Hope everybody's doing well. Let us know we have our chat going in YouTube, so interact with us there if you are watching. Yeah, this is of course the podcast where we discuss free agency in the world of professional wrestling. And we've been watching things for most of this year so far. So we might as well do a little bit of a recap of the year so far to see how accurate we've been. Does that sound good to you, Doug?
I think so. And sometimes it's nice when we have them on these Sunday mornings
Yeah.
because then there's if there's a WWE pay-per-view, we can kind of catch anything that happened on that. So like last night, we had Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
And also we had Collision with a big name return on Collision. I don't know if anyone saw that.
Who was that?
Well, there was a open challenge with Jack Perry
Hmm.
and a certain high flyer took up the challenge.
Uh-huh.
A certain uh, talent that has been obviously talked about a lot.
Yeah. Wait.
And
What was it? Ricochet?
well, it was in fact it won Marco's stunt.
Pretty close then. I was pretty
Pretty
close. Yeah.
close. You were
Yeah.
close. Yes. So we could talk about him, but I don't think we'll be doing a whole. It was a weird one too, just because as soon as he popped up on Collision, because I didn't watch it live because I was busy doing
Okay.
stuff downtown. Because which by the way, there's a giant NASCAR event in Chicago right now,
Yeah.
and
The fourth weekend NASCAR thing.
yeah, so the train home was a little raucous, but the as soon as I got home, I turned it on just as I was laying down, ready to go to sleep, and Barco's son shows up, and I'm obviously stunned. The first thing I do was Google his cage match, and he has not wrestled in 18 months.
Oh wow.
So
So like when he stopped doing AEW, he just like kind of stopped.
I mean, he'd worked indies for a bit, he was a GCW like stalwart for a long time, and that was his last booking was like in January of 2023.
Oh wow.
And he's so I don't know if there was an injury or whatever, but I think it was just that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just but we're here on a Sunday. Sometimes it's nicer to do them on a Sunday just because we get stuff from yesterday. I don't think there was any big debuts at Money in the Bank or anything like that that would
Well,
kind of.
other than previous resident of the tier list, Jacob Fatu, showed up and showed out last night. He was definitely the best part of that match with the Bloodline, I would say. Um,
Yeah,
he's an extremely good performer. His style of wrestling is going to impress a lot of people that are WWE fans to see somebody that is of his size, of his center of gravity, that is doing high flying kind of moves. It's going to be special for them to get to watch that. I know one of our people in the WrestleWatch community. He was watching it with a bunch of his friends that are much more WWE kind of aligned people, and he was like hyping it up because of WrestleWatch, we've been talking about Jacob Fatu for a while now and saying, yeah, he's actually going to be pretty good. And he's like hyping it up to his friends at the watch party, like, hey, you're gonna watch this and you're gonna be really impressed, and they were. So that's kind of part of what we do here at WrestleWatch is that we find some of these folks that are, from the indies too, or that are international, to highlight them because we see where things are going with them. So I'm very happy that people were impressed by Jacob. He got into Canada fine, which is also good for him, with his legal status and things like that. So, yeah, I guess that's the other update from the week of WrestleWatchy kind of people.
Yeah, and we've had a pretty strong start of 2024, I'd say, in terms of accuracy.
Yes,
for
yeah.
the people that we've kind of had on the tier list, and for the most part, we've been doing pretty good.
Yeah, so how about we just hop right into looking through the first half of this year and do a nice little recap of who's been on the tier list so far this year and how accurate we've been. So the first person that came off the tier list this year was Deonna Purrazzo. Way back in January, she finally debuted with AEW after a little bit of speculation that she was going to be leaving TNA, as you see. We put her on the tier list back in December of last year. It took only a month for her to get signed, and because of that, that might have been why we only had her in C tier, Doug.
Yeah, it wasn't that long, and the other thing is, I think there was still some idea that she might just end up back with TNA.
Yeah,
because this was also, I think, around that time where we knew that TNA had some money that they could throw around, and it seemed like Deonna might be one of the people they'd consider just because they pushed her very, very strongly. She was presented extremely well in TNA as one of their top acts.
yeah.
And but he jumped over to AEW, so we hit her at C tier, but it wasn't that long that she was on the tier list.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was definitely a kind of a thing where we thought that TNA. This was also when TNA was about to do their big relaunch pay-per-view at the beginning of the year, so people were thinking, oh well, TNA's back. Like, are they going to be like spending a lot of money on people and trying to solidify their roster and expand their horizons? Well, it went slightly in a different direction than what we were thinking at that time, I think.
Yeah, it's well, here's the thing. At the time, we knew they had money for like one or two big names, and one of the people they went to is actually the person I'm probably going to talk about next.
Yeah, let's see who's next on here. Oh yeah, it's Nick Nemeth. This one was an interesting one for us. We had been following him ever since he had gotten released from WWE, where his release was announced back in September of last year. And then he shows up at Wrestle Kingdom, right?
Which was interesting because I think the issue is David Finlay, who is obviously the person that he, started his feud with in New Japan, the perfect person to start your hot, run after WWE, if you want to get a lot of buzz. But it didn't necessarily work as well. And then ultimately he ended up, but he did win the global IWGP title.
Yeah.
That's what it's called now, right?
The IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah. They changed so much. All right, and then he had his match, Matt Riddle, where he. Well, because was it Matt Riddle? Yeah. Yes.
I don't think that Mammoth wrestled Riddle in New Japan.
Who am I thinking? Oh wait, no, I'm thinking never mind. I'm confused once again. Confusing the belts, confusing that TV title, exactly where they were trading those belts. So never mind. But the point is, he did that stint in New Japan. He's still kind of hesitant there. Then he signs with TNA. He did some stuff with like GCW, and he did Bloodsport. But for the most part, he hasn't, lit up the world, but he did pretty much what we kind of expect. Because at the time we thought he was either going to go to TNA or he was going to end up in AEW, just as like maybe a tag team with his brother.
Yeah.
And turns out like his brother is now wrestling in TNA, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're halfway. I mean, we were right. We knew he was going to leave.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, as an accuracy analysis. So for example, with Deonna Purrazzo, we had it at C tier, and when ended up that she did leave, I would put that as a 50% accuracy or a 3 out of 6 points. And so for Nick and Emmett, I would say that's 5 out of 6. We were almost right. We just weren't as confident as we should have been, I suppose.
Yes.
So next up on the list here is another person that's appeared in TNA recently. It is El Hijo del Vikingo. Of course, the thing with Vikingo was that I think a lot of folks, especially because he's been on the tier list, he's been on the tier list since July by the point when he came off in January. A lot of folks were thinking that he was going to solidly stay with AEW. That didn't happen. In fact, AEW stopped their partnership with well, I mean, they're still cool with TNA. I mean, AAA on the background a little bit, but they've kind of changed their affiliation in Mexico since then, even.
Yeah, it seems like they're. I don't know. I don't think they've completely abandoned CMLL, but they've definitely formalized
AAA. You mean
AAA? I apologize. Yes. I don't think they abandoned AAA, but they've definitely took the steps to formalize a relationship with CMLL in a way that they have never done with AAA.
Yeah. So Vikingo allegedly had some kind of dual contract thing with AEW, but since he was re-signed by AAA, he also had that 3-way match for the exhibition title at the TNA beginning of the year pay-per-view. But since then, I believe that he's been injured, so it's been a combination of reasons why he hasn't been back in AEW. I would be interested when he's feeling healthy again if he reappears in AEW.
Yeah, he hasn't. I'll say he hasn't wrestled since February. So he's injured, and it's going to take a little while with him. I'm curious to see what he'll do. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just back to what he was doing before, where he'll do his stuff in AAA and occasionally pick up a match here or there in AEW. I think that I could see that happening.
Yeah, I would just see. I will be very interested to see and watch what happens with that. So that's Vikingo. Relatedly, we'll talk about the guy that has said that the 3 major Lucha promotions are AAA, CMLL, and AEW. It's Andrade. That's my favorite. That is one of my favorite Andrade tweets. Like, it's just so silly that he said that when he's in WWE. And right before he wins the Speed title, how dare he say something like that before he gets put over so big? But yeah, so Andrade is somebody that we've been watching since essentially time immemorial with the tier list. We had started the tier list back in June of last year. And he finally came off of it in January when he came back to WWE. I believe in the Royal Rumble was his big return moment, in which we had a few former AEW guys appear in that Royal Rumble, including the final 2. Right? It was Punk and Cody, right? So
Yep.
Andrade, we had up in S tier. So I think we had this one exactly right from the get-go, from the drop. We knew Andrade was going away, right?
Yeah, and I know that even if during that time, like since he was on there since June, I think there may have been times where he fluctuated from S tier down.
Yeah.
Personally, I always had him at S tier because I mean, come on, the guy punched Sammy Guevara to try to get out of his contract. I mean, the idea that he's suddenly just going to I changed my mind on that. No, he clearly had made his mind that he wanted out. So he was always an S tier for me. That he was one of the easiest S tiers. And that's the thing. A lot of times we don't. Typically, we don't do S tier unless we're we see that they're leaving imminently. But for me, I thought that was such an extreme situation. The fact that he's going to those lengths to get out of his contract, that it was so obvious that he was gone. So I had him at F tier since this thing started.
Yeah, he when we started this, we had him up in A tier. So he's been essentially, I think he's only been SA or B the entire time that we've had the tier list. So we were pretty confident from day one that he was going to get out of AEW, and he did. And I mean, it seems like he's happier. I mean, he's a champion now, so surely he must be happier, right?
Listen, we'll see with him.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you watched Money in the Bank whatsoever last night.
I did not.
So I watched both that and Collision at the same time, and the reason why was because there were like 30 minutes between matches at Money in the Bank, so it was a little bit easier to watch both of them at the same time. But he was in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and they didn't mention his title whatsoever, and he couldn't bring the title out. Just as has been rumored is that, yeah, I think Ricochet mentioned it in one of his interviews after leaving WWE, was Elon and Twitter don't want the belt appearing literally anywhere else.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it's like he's in this huge marquee match. It's the first match on I would say some people would call it a Big Four pay-per-view nowadays, and he's not even allowed to bring this belt out. It's just so crazy to me that like we can have the TNA Knockouts champion and an NXT match, but we can't have an actual WWE belt on WWE TV.
So this whole speed division is extremely Twitter. Is exclusive, right?
Yes.
So
exclusive.
Yeah. So it is essentially an X division title.
Yes. Yeah. So from one manner of speak, it's the next division title. So maybe we need a unification match with this whole WWE TNA thing.
I think that should be the direction.
Yeah.
So you look at hire us.
Yeah, and then the other side, of course, is that Ricochet is really the true speed champion, and if he's going to go to AEW, of course, they have a partnership with Stardom, so maybe he should unify the high speed championship.
Absolutely. Look at us.
We're champion hookers.
We are the forbidden door.
Yeah,
all right.
Will Washington, if you're listening in, give these notes to Tony Khan.
Yes.
Just
give the notes. I don't really want to be hired.
Yeah,
I don't need the job. That sounds like a pain.
So next up here is another person that was TNA related. It's Naomi, or formerly known as in the TNA universe, in the Shoot universe, as Trinity Fatu. She first appeared on the tier list at the beginning of January, right before they did the tapings for that first TNA pay-per-view of the year, the big relaunch pay-per-view. It was said, like, her contract is running up. She might be leaving to go back to WWE. And, well, she did. She appeared, re-debuted in the Royal Rumble. It was a big moment for her. But since then, it hasn't been a lot that's happened with her. She was in the Money in the Bank ladder match last night, but it feels like that she had a lot of momentum, it felt like, coming in, because she had that fantastic run in TNA, that it's been, for me at least, a little disappointing to see how she's been handled since rejoining WWE.
Yeah. And it's very similar to Andrade, depending on how much stock you put into the speed title, in the sense that, but listen, this is going to happen in both companies now, where you just have a situation where both companies, I think, have very, very full rosters with very, very few slots. So, the cream rises to the top, and no offense to Naomi, but when there are other prospects that need to get pushed and take up her spot, and I think that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and it sounds like your dog also is upset about this.
Yes, she agrees.
Yeah, I mean, of course, she's a Naomi maniac. She was probably chanting really loud for Naomi last night at Money in the Bank. I guess your dog didn't want Tiffy time to happen.
She did not. Here, I'm gonna put her outside. So
Yeah,
I'm sit by the. This is why I actually am set up right by the back door, so I can just like yeah, you go outside.
yeah. I was kind of sad by that Money in the Bank match last night. You will have some fun watching it because I don't think that it had some interesting spots, but like the women's Money in the Bank, just like there was a bunch of bad moments where you thought that somebody was going to get injured, which was unfortunate.
I'm just kind of done with ladder matches in general. I think we need a moratorium on ladder matches at least 12 months from any and all promotions. Just give us 12 months.
Yeah,
just to have us reset.
Yeah, it's like so the ladder match that I was at. Oh yeah, because we're recording after Forbidden Door 3, which I was in attendance for. It also looks like people like Tom Grossi, who does like NFL like meme videos on the YouTubes. He was front row during the ladder match where they did that spot with Mark Briscoe doing his like classic like cannonball over the rope, like the tope cannonball thing that he does onto the ladder. I think it was Takeshita was laying on the ladder at that time. He was like right there, which is crazy because he had like this video cam footage of himself that he posted on the YouTubes. But yeah, so that ladder match, I felt like that they innovated in a few ways, but it was a pretty standard ladder match. But I think that Mark Briscoe gave it like a nice X factor on top that made it like elevated a little bit, and it didn't feel like that necessarily happened with either of the Money in the Bank matches last night. The men's just wasn't that crazy. It was much more just about Jey Uso versus LA Knight with their yeah versus yeet off. And then setting up, I guess, it set up Drew McIntyre getting the Money in the Bank briefcase, who we will be talking about later here.
Yeah.
So let me save that one.
Okay. Which by the way, once again, I'm pretty. I don't mind spoilers, but just for the record, so aware, I did not watch Money in the Bank. I got home at like midnight, and then I like fell asleep watching like Collision on DVR.
Yeah. So
and then I woke up like 20 minutes before the show started. So I'm completely spoil free.
Yeah, I didn't think that you would care so much about Money in the Bank spoilers. So
I don't, but I just want to state in case we're having a discussion that I don't know. So you have to like just loop me in when you're talking about that stuff.
Oh well, you'll love when we get to Drew McIntyre then. And yeah, it's as one of our committee members mentioned, who's been watching along with us. Yeah, there's been a general consensus among like even the most diehard WWE fans that last night wasn't the best show. But like, yeah, some people liked the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. It had some good spots in it. I thought the Sammy versus Braun match was decent, but it wasn't anything like innovative or something to go back and watch. Like there wasn't any match that was something to go back and watch. So I don't think that you're missing out by getting spoiled.
Okay.
So next up, anyway, is Brian Keith, the Bad Apple himself. We were very early on cued in on Brian Keith. We had him on watch back last October. So we had him on our radar for a while before he even got signed to AEW, which is something that we're trying to get into the spirit of with WrestleWatch, is looking at some of these indie talent that look like they're going to get signed to a major promotion. So we were a little bit on the cutting edge with Brian Keith, weren't we, Doug?
Yeah. And there's the problem is like right now, we've had this discussion before. There's not a whole lot of indie talent right now that I say are big names, prospects. Like if I had to pick like any name, like I'd probably say Marcus Mathers is a prospect that people would look into. I think that he's definitely got something. And then the other one is probably like maybe Alec Price, who's like a GCW guy you see a lot. He's really young. He's only 25, and he's I compare him to almost like the Rascals, and just like he's a very athletic dude. But Yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not really anyone I think is like a huge name. Like those that I think are going to get signed eventually. At least from like the young upcoming talents. There might be some. There's obviously some older stalwarts on the indies that have been around for a while that are that are great.
Yeah,
Dominic Garrini, things like that. But just in terms of like upcoming talent, it's like there's not a whole lot at the moment.
yeah, yeah, and that's kind of Jacob Fatu was somebody that was pretty well known from MLW, so it wasn't necessarily indie kind of a guy, but he was a little bit not as well known to probably a lot of mainstream wrestling fans. And we're gonna see with Michael Oku, with Alex Windsor, Viva Van, and Zilla Fatu. It's a little bit of that energy to see about that, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I brought up those names because it's nice to point out that we're not just looking at the people on the tier list. We like to keep our eyes open to other people that we think are possibly on the move up. Marcus Mathers, I believe, just had an AEW like dark match recently, so maybe that was a bit of a tryout.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So maybe you could mention him in the old nomination station and.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I've been thinking about it, but I'm also just like maybe it's too early. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, anyway, Brian Keith, he's now the bad apple. He started off a little bit without a path, and then Jericho brought him under his learning tree. So we'll see how he goes from here. Yeah. This is the craziest one that we ever did, I think. Next here, the AEW CMLL relationship. This is something that I championed from back at last July, right after Forbidden Door last year. I was so hard on this train of, they're going to stop working with AAA and they're going to work with CMLL. And some people called me a madman back then. But hey, look what happened. Back in February, they formalized their partnership. I think it was back in October was when Mystico first appeared in AEW for a single match. So yeah, at this point, it's been fully formalized as a partnership to the point where the Lucha Brothers are teaming with Mystico to face a New Japan team that features Titan from CMLL also. So we are now, I think, officially it is like fully over now,
Yeah, it's funny because when AEW first launched, like their big partnerships were with DDT and AAA. Those are the kind of the ones that we saw a lot of because we had the AAA talent that were coming in occasionally, and then we also had Yuki Sakazaki coming over, and all these Tokyo Joshi Pro people. And the thing that I remember saying at the time was like, this is interesting just because everyone wanted the New Japan partnership because obviously AEW is a spiritual I don't want to say successor because it's selling New Japan, but it branched from, I'd say, New Japan more than any other company. You know what I mean? And I think there was more similar to that. Along those lines, I thought that DDT. I mean, this is gonna make people mad, but I think DDT is closer to. It's more similar to WWE than it is AEW, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that I would say the same about kind of AAA. I think AAA is booked very much in a similar way to WWE, and CMLL is not. CMLL is a lot more of a traditional, grounded. When I say grounded, not like the action, but just like the booking and the real. It's more grounded, similar to New Japan. It's more grounded. And AEW was a lot more grounded back in like 2019, 2020. It's just not as much as it is now. And I always thought those companies just fit better with what AEW was. And it's interesting to finally see them come together. And now on top of that, we also have Stardom in the loop, who I also think is a much better fit than Tokyo Joshi Pro, just in terms of how the companies are presented and how they're booked. So I feel like this is what I kind of wanted and thought would make the most sense back in when this company first started. So I'm happy to see that we're finally there. The Wrestle Dynasty show I think is going to be fantastic. I'm super excited about that. So I'm it's interesting that so yeah, as you said, you called this back in July that the CMLL thing was happening, but I think that if you go back to the start of this company, this was what it should have been.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how things move on from here, because especially what we've been talking about recently is WWE starting to have these partnerships with other promotions, and well, it's been noted that cyber agent, the people that are kind of in charge of the cyber fight stuff, um they're kind of wanting to move in the direction of a WWE partnership, you know. So we'll see if maybe that DDT angle, if it stays intact at least a little bit. I know that it's been mostly just Takeshita of recent. Um, Whereas, of course, you know, Wrestle Dynasty is kind of this culmination moment of the access that New Japan and CMLL had for, you know, going back what, decades now. It's now solidifying like, hey, AEW, you can join the party now. Oh, hey, Stardom, you're finally integrated. You can join the party now. You know, it's kind of that kind of feel, right?
Yeah, and I think it'll because that's the other thing. Like Yuka Sakazaki has, she's graduated, quote unquote, from Tokyo Joshi Pro. Um, Takeshita isn't really aligned with DDT as much anymore. I mean, he's going to be in the G1, so that's a big tell.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing them once again. AEW has always said that they're going to be the company that we're going to work with everybody. We're not like cutting ties ever. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to get iced out. I think that seems to be happening with some of these promotions as Stardom seems to be, picking up a little bit more with the partnership. We're seeing, the New Japan partnership getting stronger. Obviously, Mox just was the champ not that long ago.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the formation of this little faction of promotions that are willing to work together. And obviously AEW or WWE is following suit and trying to form their own.
Yeah. And if you had your ear to the ground of some tea leaves, I think Yuka is in America again. So
Yes.
I think she
Yeah.
might be reappearing soon. Hopefully, I hope in AEW.
Yeah. I
Maybe
think
maybe she'll be in Don Callis' family. Who knows?
sh- that yeah, it's yeah, exactly.
Not to get too you know, conspiracy. Although
No, no,
I
no,
think
no, and I don't.
I think that's been confirmed. But yeah,
Yeah, there is. I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about it either, but obviously, but we know.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
but
she's back in America. So hopefully she's back in AEW soon.
yes, I
Oh,
agree.
so yeah, next up is somebody that is part of that whole discussion that we're kind of talking about. Okada. Very weird what happened with him. I think. We originally put him on the tier list at the end of December last year, and we put him in F tier. Because we had no faith that it was actually going to happen. And then
Here's the thing.
3 months
Sorry, go
later, he
ahead.
was gone. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so here's the Okada. I think more than anyone else, he exemplifies this changing landscape because where AEW and WWE are now sucking up all the top prospects with these big money deals because he was I would argue like one of the first bidding wars
Yeah.
because we're talking about because that was the thing we only had a few people that I would genuinely call a bidding war where they were going back and forth and talking to both companies had offers on the table from both and and then picked one because a lot of these times we're especially the recent WWE ones they're signing before they're even allowed to talk to the other company.
Mhm.
Now, are they sending out feelers and having getting an impression from the other company? Yeah, sure, but we're not seeing an actual bidding war from these people. Okada was a bidding war, and there's a couple other people we'll talk about that are bidding wars right now as well. And I think because of that, uh, it shows just really where everything is going right now. I mean, Okada was interesting in the sense that, there was reports that Tony Khan had said, I will not be outbid for Okada. Like he had just like he was going to be the one who's going to offer the most no matter what.
Yeah.
And obviously Tony Khan has the ability to do that more than any other promoter. And he did because, he got him. And we're probably going to see that going forward with like a lot of different people. Um, and but I think he made the right. I'm not surprised he made that decision entirely, because I'm sure that he's making more money now than he has at any other point in his career.
Yeah.
I do think it was a bit of a surprise that he supposedly moved to the United States, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, especially since his wife obviously has a career, but I guess maybe it could be a thing where maybe her career doesn't necessarily, maybe it's easier to travel to Japan to do her work than it is for him to travel to America to do his.
Well, if he's on weekly TV, then yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, he was the big first signing of the year, I suppose, for AEW because Osprey happened last year. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. He's Okada.
Yep.
Yeah, he didn't put anybody over on the way out at New Japan. But
Listen, he's gonna do the job at Wrestle Dynasty to David Finlay.
So anyway, let's get to the second of the big signings of the year, or the third, depending on the debut structure that you want to look at it as. The trinity of AEW signings this year: Osprey, Okada, and Monet. She has been tier list since time immemorial. She's always been an S tier. She was S tier. She is the S tier. You know. We just didn't know where it was going to be for a while there. It seemed like it was going to be AEW for a while, up until All In. She was at All In last year. Then it just kind of got quiet going into October. It seemed like she might be going back to WWE, and then all of a sudden at the end of December, hard turn back to AEW. She got signed around then. It turned out she had been under contract for 3 months before she actually debuted at Big Business in Boston. And then she didn't actually wrestle until the end of May. But boy, howdy, what matches she's had so far. I think that she's like silenced all doubters about the weight. At this point, nobody's talking about the weight that happened, you know?
Yeah, we knew it was going to happen as soon as she actually wrestled. Everyone was going to forget all that, and they did.
Yeah.
And she's been great, obviously. I mean, I think it's notable that her run, she's done a good job of making every single match she's making it so people are talking about her opponent, which is absolutely what AEW needs right now.
100%.
Yeah. So she's doing a great job in that respect. And I think that, this past Wednesday on Dynamite, I was in that building, and I think they've finally figured out what they want to do with her and how to present her, and that it couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah.
I thought it was excellent.
I think that she's been perfectly slotted now. Like, it was essentially once the post-Dynasty ramp up to that first match happened, that's when they started clicking about, oh, this is what we're going to actually do with her. So it's like, in the match, it feels like she is a heel, because she's going up against somebody, like, when she was against Willow, people wanted Willow to win. When she's against Stephanie, people wanted Stephanie to win. It's probably going to happen with Britt, that Britt's going to get cheered over her, but people are going to cheer Mercedes as she's going to the ring. And that's like that dynamic of a heel that people are behind still. And it's very interesting of a dynamic. It kind of reminds me of Jade Cargo a little bit, how she was being slotted in AEW, because it's like, in the shoot world, you are behind her. You're behind Jade. But then once you go into the kayfabe world, you're like, well, but she's a heel, so kind of feels weird. But like, I think that they figured out the balance with Jade towards the end of her run in AEW of like, well, she's a heel, but she's also like somebody to inspire. And I think that
Yes.
that's what they found the balance with Mercedes is like she's a heel, but like she's going to inspire people at the same time.
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect comparison.
Yeah. So I obviously Mercedes is doing 4 or 5 star matches. um,
Yeah, yeah. We no longer have the Jade match on the pay per
yeah.
views
Now we have
anymore.
the Mercedes match, which is like always the most like I think that now the Mercedes match is one of the most anticipated matches up there with like the Danielson match, the Osprey match, kind of a thing. Because you're like, oh wow, oh Willow versus Mercedes could have been the main event of Double or Nothing. It could have been the last match on that card, and no, like I mean, sure, there are people that would complain because like, oh, Swerve didn't get the last match or anything, but like, I don't think that people would have been phased by that. And then like retrospectively, like obviously, Osprey Swerve needed to main event Forbidden Door, but like Mercedes Vacor was one of the highlights of that show in a way that during the match you kind of started feeling that fever. I think. Well, some people didn't love the crowd because the crowd was chanting relevant chants about somebody from Boston, and people didn't understand that. But
Yeah, yeah. I had discussion too with people. It's like they thought that was disrespectful. It's like, no, it's directed at Mercedes. It's fine.
yeah, like the crowd was very obviously like maybe like 5 minutes in, we got because I was there. We got to the point of I think the collective consciousness of the crowd was like Stephanie is something else, and a lot of the people that were like kind of casually like fans of AEW, they watched the TV, so they knew who Stephanie was kind of, but not as solidly of like knowing her work. I think they all got converted in the first 5 minutes and were solidly behind her. So like I don't think that it was kind of like a we're bored kind of a chant. It was a we are directly chanting and cheering for Stephanie and directly cheering against Mercedes.
Yes.
So it was fun. But that's anyway. Let's get on with the next person who I misspelled here.
Yes, you did. I was gonna point that out just to be a jerk, but yes, you did.
And we'll hit both of these two in tandem. This was when we're doing Rossi Watch here, of course, about Marigold starting up. We were a little bit unsure about how we wanted to deal with the start of Marigold relationship stuff, and all the people that might have been going to Marigold, but we added some of the names that we thought might either leave Stardom to go to America, like Shuri, or might go to Marigold, like Suzu Suzuki, and neither of them left Stardom. So yeah,
I thought they were both going to Marigold.
yeah,
I think we were both pretty wrong on those.
yeah. We were. I think yeah. Even though we had C tier for Suzu, I think still the feeling of people was she's probably gonna leave.
Yeah. So though, and I don't know what that says about Marigold.
Yeah,
Um, we're still very early on into uh the existence of the promotion, so I'm just gonna kind of it's a wait and see for me.
yeah,
I want to see how they draw. Obviously, the first one, they sold out at Cork and Hall, but it's Cork and Hall. It's not hard to do that, especially if it's the first show of a brand new promotion. That alone is going to draw. So I think I want to see where they're at, maybe in 6 months,
yeah,
and then really kind of maybe at that point it may not be a bad idea to kind of take a step back and just look at this company and what it's done. Obviously, they're bringing in EO, so that's so we're starting to see the formation of that WWE partnership and what that will bring or won't bring. Uh,
yeah,
and then obviously we don't know how long Julia is going to be around, so the whole thing is very strange in that regard.
yeah. It's something that I think as time goes on, we'll see more what's going on, and it might become obvious once the WWE partnership of why maybe some people didn't leave. Because like I think by January when Wrestle Dynasty happens, we'll have a solid understanding of like this is what Marigold is and this is what Stardom is now. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think it's possible that either of them could leave at some point, but like yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what happens as time goes on.
At this point, I feel like if they were gonna leave, they would have left.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Maybe they'll leave soon. But I think obviously the next one we're going to be keeping an eye on is going to be Mayu Itani.
Yeah, I think Mayu is the big one. I think if if and when we reevaluate promotions again to consider who we want to be, watching for landing spots, I think that Marigold's probably going to get added, and I think Mayu is going to automatically get added to the tier list because like she is one of the most interesting cases, and I think that we still have Utami Hayashishida because there's still that like background rumor of like maybe she'll go to WWE after Julia goes. Um,
Hmm.
so that's another thing that we're gonna have to wait to see first off how the WWE partnership goes, but then second off when Julia leaves, how Tommy gets booked in Marigold.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our Rossi Watch segment for the week. Uh, uh, we're gonna do a few of these a little bit quick. I hope. Cody Rhodes. I was on Cody Watch. I was wrong. He was he re-signed with WWE. It sounds like his contract is through next summer though, so we will possibly have him back on the tier list again soon enough. Um, but yeah, Cody Rhodes obviously is the biggest babyface in WWE, so good for him.
Yes. Beast Mortis, we expected to go. We had him at S tier, and he did.
Yeah, and he's another one that's one of those he's not an indie guy. He was in AAA, but like he was somebody that we kind of had a feeling about when he was Black Taurus of like, yeah, maybe he's gonna leave AAA.
Hmm.
And now also speaking of that CMLL partnership, when he was having some issues with his visa going into the States, CMLL had him wrestle on a local show. So it sounds like that's like another solidification of the relationship between AEW and CMLL that they're like, oh well, this guy is like obviously now signed with AEW, so we're totally cool with him being on one of our shows. He's not a AAA guy anymore, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and then we have Tamatanga, S tier,
Yeah,
signed to WWE. I don't think we can do that one.
yeah, that was one that it was after Wrestle Kingdom that the buzz started coming up about him leaving New Japan, and well, it happened. We were totally right about it, so um, good for us. 6 points.
Yep. And then the next one would be Finn Balor, who we had at C tier. Thought he can kind of go either way. Part of the Mag 7.
Yes, your Max.
Um,
Actually, let's talk about him and Drew McIntyre together a little bit because those are kind of
I mean,
similar
and
vibes.
we could throw Seth Rollins in there too if you really want.
Okay, yeah,
All
let's
three
go
of
for all three of these. That some people are calling the Geek Squad. Um,
them. Listen, they all are people who kind of did what we was interesting in the sense that they did not go into free agency, as far as I'm aware. I think that they all three of I think all three of them signed before that happened,
yeah,
and uh, hopefully they got a lot of money.
yeah. Uh, so that's the end point of the spoiler thing about Drew McIntyre is that he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then he did the dumb geek passion option. You know the one where
The one,
there's a match later on the card for the title, and instead of going out after the match, he enters the match as a triple threat.
okay, yeah, that's a dumb geek cash in, all right.
And of course, what do you think happened?
I'm gonna guess that CM Punk got involved.
Yeah, yeah. So at the end of the match, Seth gets hit with some move by Damian Priest. He rolls out of the ring, and then Drew's beating up Damian, and CM Punk goes into the ring and starts fighting with Drew McIntyre in front of the ref because, of course, in a triple threat, it's no DQ. So
Which once again makes no sense.
makes no sense at all. You just disqualified the guy. Like that's being I don't know. Like you can get rid of the guy that's interfering. You can disqualify somebody that's obviously being helped. Like that is my least favorite trope in wrestling. It automatically makes me hate a match. Is oh, it's a triple threat, so it's no DQ. It's like, like you can do better. You can make this not. So anyway, he takes Drew out of the ring. He starts hitting him with the chair. He starts strangling him with a cord. He hits him with the belt. He falls into the ring and Damien pins him, and that's the match.
Yeah.
So the Money in the briefcase lasted a total of like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well,
anyway, the point is with this is that we've seen this with a lot of the WWE guys that have re-signed, is that they re-sign and then for some reason rather than getting pushed more, they just lose more.
well, I think that it's fair to say that that's been generally the case with the people that have already kind of had their push. You could argue Drew's had his push. Seth Rollins has had his push. Finn Balor, you could argue, has not. Like they really try. They tried at one point and then they got injured and they never tried again.
Yeah.
So he's one that, maybe he'll get his push still. But I think the others, and even you can even throw Naomi in this as someone who's gotten her push already. I
Yeah.
think these are people who maybe just took the bag. They just took the money.
Yeah.
And they took what was comfortable. Because I'm not saying that and maybe because they don't know exactly what they would have gotten if they went into free agency and actually did an earnest negotiation between the two companies to
Yeah.
see who would give them the best deal, because they didn't wait that long. But it could also just be, hey, they've been there for years. They know the system. They're comfortable there. They don't know what the other place is necessarily going to bring. And they just they went with that. They stuck with what they knew because they were offered enough. And I guess that's okay. But I do think, in terms of what would be good for the talent overall, I think actually exploring free agency when you're a big name like that, and maybe you even get a big deal and reset the labor price for the company and that for the industry, and maybe that'll help other people later on. I'm not saying they need to act altruistically like that and just do that, but it's something they could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's those three.
Yep.
The next one up here is Ethan Page, which kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. He wasn't over. He didn't get over in AEW. They tried with him many times. They came in giving him the big reach for the brass ring mystery participant thing. So they tried to make him seem kind of like a bigger deal. They tried him in a tag team with Men of the Year. He wasn't catching fire. He's a good worker. He's got a good look. He's tall, but he just, he's not gonna. He didn't break through. I mean, I think they gave him an honest shot in AEW, and I think that he saw that it wasn't working, and he had the option to, try it in NXT. So it was like, hey, why not? And I don't blame him for that. I think that he made the right call.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny now because he said some things that are really weird recently about he 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 realized that he was like 17 years in the business and essentially still green, and that the trainers in NXT are so much better than anything he's ever had, and it just like it's this weird like burying of everywhere else that he's ever been, but at the same time kind of burying NXT because it's like, wow, if this guy's green, then he's getting two pay-per-views in a row where he's fighting for your top title. It's kind of
Well, not only
like it's so weird.
not only that. I mean, I just kind of look. He's hyping up his company, because if you go back and look at his comments when he signed with AEW, he says kind of the exact opposite in a positive way. It's like, oh, there's a company that lets you really do what you want and really let your creative side flow, and just so it's like he's painting the positives of the company that he works for, whichever that company is, and that's fine. I'm not going to look into it any more than that. I know what he's doing, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, so that's Ethan Page. He'll be on the NXT Heatwave show tonight in the four-way with him and Shawn Spears competing for the world title or the brand title.
See if anyone else debuts tonight.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see if their lug and teal activity has made it so that people don't know Julia's going to show up. We'll find out. And then Chad Gable is the next one of this quartet of re-signings with WWE. Again, a kind of later addition to the tier list, relatively speaking, to when he ultimately re-signed with WWE, but we have an at an F tier, so I think we were pretty much fully accurate with thinking that he was going to just stay with WWE anyway. I'll give that a 6 out of 6 on that one. Whereas Ethan Page is obviously a 0 out of 6 for us.
Yes.
So yeah, Chad Gable re-signed. Good for him. In theory, he's getting a lot of money, more than he was getting before. He was in the Money in the Bank match last night. Didn't do much in it. Did some nice spots, but we'll see if he gets that intercontinental push that people have been wanting for him. And
Yeah.
Eric Rowan signed with WWE again. This was another one that we had kind of knew about for a while. He re-debuted with the Wyatt 6 or 6, depending on what typography you're looking at it in. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. I don't. Who knows? But he's in it, so he's back with the Fed S tier. So again, we were totally accurate, and we had it for a while that he was going to go up there. So yeah.
Yeah. They took a long time to actually finally. They were slowly building that whole faction
Yeah.
and teasing it, and just they finally. I mean, we'll see what they do anything with this, because I think I said it last week. It's like this is not for me, but I get it's really popular.
Yeah.
But obviously the thing that always happens with all these Wyatt factions and storylines and things, they have a cool idea, they don't have a real end destination in mind, and it just kind of fizzles out. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time.
And then the last one is Jacob Fatu, who also debuted at the same time. It was like the same weekend as Eric Rowan. Again, somebody that we've been watching actually all the way back the same time that Tama Tonga was getting his rumors about going to WWE. And of course, he debuted far earlier than Jacob Fatu did. Yeah, another S tier, totally accurate prediction for us.
Yeah, first time I ever saw Jacob Fatu live was in an MLW pay-per-view that I went to on a whim, and he really impressed me live. So I think that he's gonna do. I think he's gonna do fantastic in WWE. I don't see how they can not push this guy.
Yeah, I think that he's the kind of guy that they need to not get in the way of what's going to happen, I think. Because I think that he's going to get really over quickly from his in-ring work, which is not, of course, typical for WWE for them to see that and want to push. They usually want to push the guy that has the big character. And I think he can be a character, sure, but like, I think that he's somebody that they need to look at like soon, thinking about like the intercontinental and U.S. title scenes of like maybe we want to get this guy something like that. Because I think that he's gonna really impress people.
I think there's a lot of people that are concerned that they may not want to push him over, someone like Braun Breaker that came from the inside that they could say is one of their guys.
Yeah,
But I don't know that I necessarily see a lot of evidence of that happening since Vince left.
yeah.
But at the same time, I also feel like maybe it's a little early to make that judgment and whether or not that's the case.
Yeah,
Um,
there's also kind of the ceiling of like Solo Sikoa's right there, and it's like somebody that's I think younger than Jacob Fatu, and he's kind of like the quote unquote leader of the Bloodline right now. So it's like you can't push Jacob more than you push Solo for the time being.
and I'll say this: if I had to pick, like, do like devil's advocate and say, like, what could be something else holding Jacob Fatu back, he has had some issues where he would just kind of ghost bookings.
Yeah,
Not saying he's going to necessarily do that in WWE, but maybe it does kind of just speak to some, you know, maybe some maturity issues he maybe needs to work out. If and once again, I'm kind of like I'm grasping for straws here, just looking at some downfalls, just to play devil's advocate, because I think he's a blue chipper, as some would say.
yeah.
So we'll see.
And then finally, this is the most recent one, and this is going to get us into talking through the tier list this week, possibly a little bit. It's MxM. They signed with ROH, it seems. So they had a nice video package. It seemed like what was that?
Are we sure that they signed?
Well, we're considering them signed.
Okay.
And Mason. No, it was Mansoor on his Twitter profile is in his bio is promoting ROH in the bio. So it seems like they have signed.
Okay, I didn't see that. All right.
Yeah, so like they had a video package on this past week's episode of Ring of Honor. It seems like that
I
when
saw
they
that.
when they went to Collision that one week, it seems that what they were doing, because there was like that thing where it was like they had prepared a video package for them for Ring of Honor, and then they didn't show up. So I guess they're not like getting pushed or something got canceled. People thought that it was like like a Videotron for them, but no, it was that they were preparing a video for Ring of Honor for their debut. So the phrasing got kind of lost there in the reports. I think that they would have been higher than C tier if we had known that it was actually that they were like making a video package for their debut rather than like, oh yeah, they just have some graphics ready for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been interacting with all the official accounts. The official accounts follow them on Twitter. They promote Ring of Honor in their Twitter bios. People like Nyla Rose are saying, like, welcome to, they're in Nyla Rose's fun way, welcome to the promotion on Twitter. So, yeah, I think it's solid. And
Yeah,
that's
that I'll be honest, all that sounds pretty solid. I did not hear all that part, so I get that.
And I
But
think
yeah,
and I think that this goes into what people have been speaking about recently about the possible change in direction or refocus with Ring of Honor. Um,
yes.
it feels like if they are signing somebody that is so they're not going to light the world on fire at MxM. We can get that out of the way.
No.
But they are somebody that if you have Ring of Honor number one as a separate promotion that is going to actually film separately, there's somebody that might get people to buy tickets for your show. If you have them as Ring of Honor is, before Collision or Dynamite taping, there's somebody that, like, if you know that they're going to show up, Athena's going to show up on the essentially the pre-show, you might show up early because they're fun to watch. They're not, I like them as people, and they are people that get folks talking, and they produce fun quality stuff. So I think that they're the right kind of fit to get people to look at Ring of Honor, first off, but second off, I think that they're the right kind of fit for trying to build out an actual tag division in Ring of Honor.
Yes, I think I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with Ring of Honor. I think maybe this residency that they're having in Arlington could be a good opportunity to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Since they're going to be there, they'll have. I think these residencies are fantastic. I think it's a great idea, and I hope it really works out for them because I want to see them go further with this.
Yes.
With all these collision dates specifically, I think it would make Dynamite feel different from Collision. I think the idea of keeping Collision to like a 2,000 seat venue, making it more of an intimate feel, I think is a great idea. I want them to keep this up, and just the idea of like we're here for like 6 weeks, and you can just like every Saturday if you want, you can go to the show if you live in that area. I think it's a cool idea.
I think that they should try it out with, and I think specifically with Ring of Honor about this. I think that once they do this Arlington residency for Ring of Honor, that they should be looking at other cities with historic kind of wrestling spaces and hotspot cities for AEW to do this kind of thing with. So, essentially, like what TNA does for their tapings.
I was Googling, just trying to find like other esports arenas in the country, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of them. Which I'm kind of surprised. I would think that there would be a few.
So here's my thing with that is that I think that they need to think outside the bun a little bit with this. So first off, you have your list of your historic kind of venues, right? Your Hammerstein Ballroom, your ECW arena kind of place. Easy selection, well known to wrestling fans, well known to Ring of Honor. Do a weekend of tapings there. You have a month's worth of shows. Great, everybody wins, right?
Yes.
And they're both kind of hotspot cities, you know, New York and Philly. Then you have your second tier of kind of place, and this is where they have to think outside of the box a little bit with this. Um, they need to not look at arenas. They need to look at concert venues. And so there's this crop of concert venues. So I work in the touring music industry, for the record, for people. There's this crop of concert venues that opened up since 2017 that are 3 to 6,000 capacity and were purpose built, uh, kind of tiered where they have like optional seating on the ground floor for a pit, movable or removable stage. Places like the Anthem in DC, the Salt Shed in Chicago, the indoor venue of the Salt Shed. The Eastern in Atlanta. Um, where else am I thinking about? Stage AE and Kemba Live, and there's another one of these in Cincinnati. So Columbus, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh have these kinds of combo venues where it's indoor outdoor, but the indoor space is like it's sizable enough, and it kind of feels like Hammerstein capacity, or as some people might know the Manhattan Ballroom kind of a thing, Manhattan Center. These are the kinds of venues that we've seen before NXT do house shows at. And I think that that means that they're pretty well primed for doing these kinds of shows and residencies, especially if it's during like an off season for the concert venue. And I think that will be far. They also have catering facilities and the ability to do live broadcasts and all those kinds of things if they want to. And they'll be far cheaper to rent than an arena. So that's my hot pitch, Tony Khan, is that he should be booking Ring of Honor at the Salt Shed in Chicago. Not Talia Hall, which would also work, but like that's way too small.
I like this. That's a great point. I that you should clip that.
Well, it's essentially what they're doing in Arlington. You know, it's like this venue that
Yeah.
was purpose
No,
built for this one purpose, and it's you're using it's kind of different from its original purpose, but at the same time, it's not. It's like it's not an arena, but it has a sizable capacity. You know?
I think that makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
hopefully they do that because once you said it'll make it look different because I think the problem is Collision and Dynamite look the same.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think that another problem is if you keep on booking shows for Chicago. Hey, they announced another Chicago show. Did you see that?
Yeah, how about that?
Not the Thanksgiving one. They booked another one in Champlain. It's on the Wednesday before All Out.
Oh, okay. Well, to be fair, Champagne's not really Chicago.
Then they booked Milwaukee for the Wednesday after.
Okay, that Milwaukee. I'll be honest. Okay, the distance between. Okay, I mean, let me do right
I
here.
think it's
Like,
60 miles.
well, to Milwaukee's not too bad. Milwaukee's maybe like if a drive, it's a little under 2 hours. But Champagne, I feel like is going to be a little bit longer. Let me see. Champagne, no, it's 2 hours. Never mind.
Yeah, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 shows in a week in the same kind of area. Anyway, Chicago. If you're not having a good crowd, Tony Khan should come out and tell you that you suck. Uh,
Yes.
but anyway, let's just say our accuracy 75% accurate. By grading on a 6 point scale for if we were right on the money, it was 6 points, and you're 75% accurate on the year so far. So I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, do you want to take a quick break?
Yeah, if you need to go get a coffee refill, let's do a quick break, and we will. The microphones will be live still, unless you mute your own. So we'll be right back to WrestleWatch in 1 second.
All right. All right, I'm back.
Hey everybody, it's time for a little bit more WrestleWatch.
I am back.
Great, how's your coffee?
It's very good. Did you I just sent you a message on Discord.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Oh yeah.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. So let me get this. All right. So I'll bring us all back. So hello everybody. Welcome back to the WrestleWatch podcast, the only podcast where we cover the world of pro wrestling free agency. So the next thing that we're going to do is the thing we do every week, the thing that you come here for, and that's to discuss the probabilities of people jumping to other promotions as we go through the tier list. So the first thing I think we need to do is just go through the tier list as it exists. So I'll read through that real quick. So first on S tier, we have Camille. We have the Motor City Machine Guns. Do you want to just do one at a time, or do we want to go through them all first?
Well, this is from last week, of
Oh,
course.
okay, last week. So we had Camille, Machine Guns in S tier. We had Hikuleo and Ricochet in A tier. Grizzled Young Vets, Ricky Starks, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Alex Windsor, Leo Rush, Dijak, and Zilla Fatu in B tier. And then C tier, we had Sheamus, Trevor Lee, or Speedball Mike Bailey, Mustafa Ali, the Von Erichs, Danhausen, the WWE NXT Partnership, Megan Bain, MxM, D tier, Dustin Rhodes, Jinder Mahal, Tekla, Kevin Owens, Natalia, Shelton Benjamin, Becky Lynch, Katsuhika Nakajima, Viva Van, and AEW going to another partner besides Warner Brothers Discovery. And then finally, F tier, we have Suri, Utami Hayashishida, Hook, El Phantasmo, Buddy Matthews, Kato Kiyomiya, Matt Cardona, Michael Oku, Jake Hager, Jake Lee, Street Profits. How'd I do?
You pronounced everything correctly, so you
Excellent. I
did
tried to go quick.
fantastically. Um,
Excellent.
so I think that what we'll do this week is we'll go through again everybody that was nominated for by our committee to reconsider for the tier list, and then we will discuss them, say how we want them to get tiered, and then we'll reveal where they got placed. So first up, we have Dustin Rhodes, where we were kind of unsure if there's any new news really happening with him. What do you think is next for Dustin Rhodes, Doug? And where do you think that he should be on the tier list?
So here's the thing. We had him at D tier before. I understand that people kind of feel like everything's kind of gone quiet on him. So I don't blame people if they think it's time to remove him. I don't even remember what I voted for him just because he's once again, this kind of shows the idea that's like I really have no opinion on Dustin Rhodes whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Can I see him like jumping for some reason? I suppose, but I also don't, really anticipate that. I don't even remember what I voted. Maybe I might have voted just keep him where he's at.
Let me check to see. You voted to keep him where he's at. So I wanted to move him just down to F because it feels like there is a lack of buzz about him leaving AEW at this point, or specifically also going to WWE. It seems that like both parts of that buzz conversation have kind of dwindled recently. Um, so I just wanted to like notch him down like one little bump in the probability index. You know what I mean? Um, it seems that we were both a little bit too bullish on him for what our committee was thinking, because a majority of the WrestleWatch committee wants to just remove him for the time being.
And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. I don't have it, that's to be fair. When we say like we're more bullish, it's the difference of saying he's probably not going anywhere to he's definitely not going anywhere. So it's like we all don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, like you were at a D, which is it's probably not going to be a jump. I was saying unlikely going to jump. Uh, but yeah, the majority of the folks that work with us on this project for WrestleWatch, they were feeling like it just let's just put him off for now. Which of course is not saying that we don't think that he's going to jump. It's just that he is so low of a probability right now that we're just not going to include him on the tier.
Exactly.
Um, so next up that we're going to look at is El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. Recently, he had an interview where he was asked about his status with AAA and Noah, and he said that his Noah contract expires January 2nd of 2025, and that he expects to get big interest from a number of promotions. I think that he mentioned also possibly wanting to work in America. So what do you think about El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., Doug? Are you familiar with his work?
I have not really watched any of his stuff in Noah at all. Um, I've heard, you know, I've heard things about him, but it's like I've not heard like him lighting up the world necessarily. Obviously, I know he's, won the title and things like that, but I don't have any super strong opinions on him. I think that he could obviously go somewhere though. I mean, he's in a profile role in Noah. That alone is enough to kind of give someone some buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it is, January is kind of a ways off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a ways off. So I think I voted for F tier on him, honestly.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think that's fine because he just like when we're talking about January in July, I mean, this we can readjust as things get closer and we have a better picture of the whole thing.
yeah. So I voted for F as well, simply because I think that there's quite a distance still ahead of us about the possibilities of this. But he's 32. He's wrestling in Noah as probably one of their top kind of people, I would say. He doesn't get a lot of looks from like Meltzer just because he's in Noah. um, but his match with Kato Kiyomiya recently, last month, was very well received by people that watch Pro Wrestling Noah. He's had some decent bouts, even with like Jake Lee. Um, so I think that he's somebody. I think also he did a match in Prestige with Leo Rush last month as well. So he's starting to do some indie bookings in America proper, possibly trying to get a little bit of a buzz about him in America. So I think that putting him at this kind of F tier feels right at this moment. I'm not bullish enough to put him higher than that at this moment because I think that it could be like as we've said before with like people like Penta, where they let their contract run out before they actually start talking with other places, or they'll just let their contract run out and then re-sign on the day that it runs out. So it's possible that like he's trying to generate some buzz around himself, rather than like he's gonna leave the Noah AAA universe of things. But I think that he's somebody that should be watched. So I voted F, you voted F, and our committee also agrees. They think that he should be an F tier. So that is where we're going to be putting El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. Um, there you go.
Yep, that's it. All right, so the next one we have is one Hikuleo.
Yeah. So some people were trying to think about maybe it's time to push him all the way up to S tier. What do you think, Doug, about that?
I think Talatanga going up to S tier is fine. If that were what the committee decided to do, I'm also fine keeping him at A. I can tell you which one I picked. I'm sure I picked one of the two. I probably, if I had to guess, I probably picked A.
Yeah,
Or I might have picked this. Yeah,
you picked A. Yeah.
yeah. Um, just because there's no, I don't think we've seen any confirmation that he's actually been signed, or any report that he's been signed. So I'm fine keeping him at A for now, but I think we all kind of expect him to be showing up in WWE imminently or close to imminently. So him at A tier is fine with me.
Yeah, I am somebody that also thinks that A tier feels right for him at this point. Um, I like making sure that we only keep people that we are like 90, 100% confident on that they're going to get signed and debut imminently in S tier. I think some of us are a little bit laxer with S tier, um, and I think that that's something that is rearing its head a little bit with Motor City Machine Guns, where now there are rumors that they are not. So the original reports were that they were in discussions with AEW, that the deal, like that they had agreed to go to AEW, but they hadn't signed a deal yet. That they were negotiating a deal. And then we put them in S tier. And then now there are people like Sean Ross Sapp and some of the rumor mill of like WWE rumor mill people that are accurate enough in the like the deep web of Twitter space um, that have kind of indicated that it's possible that Motor City Machine Guns are not going to AEW, but they're going to WWE possibly. So I think that we're a little bit too quick to put some people up in S tier. Um, so that's why I feel like Hikuleo, even though I'm pretty confident he's going to be in WWE soon, I still want to keep him in A tier personally.
Yeah. And then I think that he's going to be popping up soon as well. And I think that there is some subjectivity to the S tier stuff for sure. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah.
Yeah,
So the next
yeah we
one,
so for the record, we kept him in A tier.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Next we have Jinder Mahal. He was announced for an upcoming AAA show.
Yeah. I think its name there is going to be like the Raj Desi, um, which I think that's based off of his actual name, so that's good. But yeah, he's teaming up with Satnam Singh in a tag match.
Interesting.
Uh,
And he's staying. Well, he's staying in D tier for now.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that it's funny because it's an AEW talent, but it's also in AAA, which is a promotion that's like kind of on the way outs with its part
Yeah, it's kind of
with
on the way out
AEW,
with the
so to
partnership.
speak.
Yeah,
So it's yeah. So it's interesting. It's just I don't know if we can really read the tea leaves on that or anything, but I think it's interesting.
yeah. I think if we were to read tea leaves on it, it's like AAA is kind of. It seems like Conan really wants to do a partnership with WWE, but it doesn't seem like that there's going to be a partnership with WWE, um, which makes it feel less likely than that we would read any tea leaves in Jinder Mahal doing a gig there. At the same time, though, it's like, wow, okay, if he's gonna go do a AAA show, that might make him a little bit might not make a lot of people want to put their hands on him, although it could make TNA because they have a partnership with AAA. So, yeah, I'm keeping him a D tier. I think that that's the right call. Um, Next up here, we have Matt Cardona. It seems like he's just chugging along on the indies since that AEW appearance that he did with that match with Adam Copeland.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with he's still doing his stuff with GCW, which has been very successful. Um, I'm sure he's making a ton of money doing that, but the issue is he's still been injured, so
yeah,
I think they're not expecting him to do anything based off of that. So eventually the time will come when he's, free and clear and can actually, pick other options if he wants to. And when that time comes, we could address it. But I don't think we necessarily need to address it at this point.
Yeah, so I wanted to just take him off. I think that you what way were you going? Keeping him in that or taking him off?
I think I kept him in F just because he's interesting to discuss. Um, but I think that we don't know when he's going to be back. He might be back imminently for all we know.
Yeah,
Just because I don't think when was he injured? Like probably in April.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I don't remember what his injury was. I think it was something with the arm, broken arm maybe. So I don't know when he'll be back, but he's someone who I still think could imminently sign anywhere potentially, even if he is, doing really well. So I might have just kept him in at where he was at. I'm not sure what I said.
Yeah, his last show was April 13th with Reality of Wrestling, it looks like, which is I guess Fed adjacent. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, it looks like that our committee was a little bit split on it, but for the time being, we want to just take him off for the time being, until he gets better, and maybe buzz will happen again with him. But at the moment, we're just gonna not be looking at him for the tier list.
And that's fine.
And I think that we already talked about MxM
Hmm.
a decent amount earlier on the previous segment, but just to recap, of course, their video package was quite fun. The MxM collection has arrived in Ring of Honor. Um, yeah, I'm interested in seeing what they're doing, especially because as they talk on their streams, they really are interested in having this kind of creative freedom, and I think that the environment that they'll have with the Ring of Honor residency in Arlington will allow them to both have creative freedom but have a sustained push and vision behind that freedom. You know,
Hmm.
uh, because like it's gonna be hard for them to like if they're filming a month's worth of programming, and I mean or maybe even 2 months worth of programming in Arlington. Like it'll be hard for them to get their push to get cut out or anything like that. Uh, but they'll have all the freedom in the world in an environment like Ring of Honor. When we look at things like that happen in Ring of Honor, it's a fun promotion right now. But yeah, I'm hoping that they get a little bit more focused on having a separate roster.
Uh, yeah, I'm. It's funny because I think about Ring of Honor now, and they kind of do have like they've done a decent job of sort of establishing their second roster. Because there's the people who you really only see in Ring of Honor right now, or really only have storylines in Ring of Honor. Obviously, Athena and all them, and her whole adjacent group. But you also have people like Marina Shafir, who has been doing a lot of things in Ring of Honor at the moment, and I think that they could definitely start. I mean, but then you look at the other issue. You have like someone like Mark Briscoe, who is the Ring of Honor World Champion, but he's kind of presented as just like a mid card on Dynamite.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
this thing where it's like there's kind of a contradiction at times or a paradox with how they deal with the men's champions of Ring of Honor, which is just put them on AEW TV, versus the women's champions of Ring of Honor, which is they never are allowed to be mentioned on AEW TV. It feels like um, it's a little bit it's not the same treatment, and I think that like that's something that people pick up on when they're watching Ring of Honor is that yeah, sure, like Taven and Bennett do appear in Ring of Honor, but it doesn't feel like they're in Ring of Honor, you know?
hmm
And Mark sometimes will show up now, but I can't remember off the top of my head if Mark has had even a title defense since. No, he had a defense against Kyle Fletcher.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's like he's not appearing a lot in Ring of Honor since winning the belt. He had the title win at SuperCon of Honor, and then he did like a proving ground match against Griff Garrison, and then the defense against Kyle Fletcher, and that's really been it for the past since April. Um, So I think hopefully with the tapings that they do in Texas, that'll kind of change how the dynamic is, and hopefully it'll give a little bit more of a like more focus for Ring of Honor. Not a focus on Ring of Honor necessarily, but Ring of Honor will become more focused. Um, so that's MxM. um, kind of tangential because we already talked about them a little bit earlier, but yeah, they've been removed from the tier list. We were half right on it. So that's MxM, and next up is Sheamus. There hasn't been a lot of updates on his contract work. He's been appearing intermittently in the past month or so, but mostly just kind of losing matches. It doesn't feel like there's necessarily a direction that they're going with him personally, but it also doesn't feel like that there's much buzz about his contract status as much as there was before.
I think I wanted to keep him at C.
Yeah, I wanted to move him down one notch just because it feels like, especially also when we're thinking back to as we were doing the recap, all the folks that this year just re-signed that we were a little bit too hot on their chances of leaving WWE. That's why I kind of wanted to bring it back one notch, one dial on Sheamus. And I
Yeah.
and it seems like a majority of our committee also wanted to bring him just down one notch because he's going down to D tier now.
I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm still 50-50 on him sticking around.
Yeah.
I think that he's listen, I'm holding on to my Mag 7. I'm getting one of them.
Yeah, I think right now what it's left is him and it's him, AJ, Sammy, and Kevin Owens are the four that are left of the Magnificent Seven that have not had their contract status finalized.
Yes. And AJ I don't expect.
Yeah, I think that
The other three, I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Sheamus is why I'm going to keep Sheamus at C tier. I'm keeping it alive.
Well, we'll maybe we'll reconsider if more news happens, but for the time being, he's gonna stay in D tier as consensus.
Okay.
Um, Next up is Shelton Benjamin, who seems to just be touring the Indies.
Yeah, I think I voted to take him off.
I also believe that I voted to take him off. It's kind of it doesn't feel like it's happening.
No.
Like I think that there was a window of opportunity for him, and I think that we were justified in watching him and wanting to see where he was going to go. Obviously, also because of course there was then the rumor that he had something planned in AEW. It might have been only a match, but he had something planned and then it just never happened.
Maybe he'll be a Ring of Honor guy.
You know that is a possibility of a placement for him. But yeah, for the time being, I feel like that it's not the same kind of thing where and also for the record, the majority of us voted for F tier as we're to put him. So we'll stay on the tier list for the time being. But yeah, it doesn't feel like when we look at the other folks in F tier right now, there's some of them that are far off contract kind of people, like Hook or El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr. There's some people that are like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, like Oku or Kaito or Jake Lee, Sari. And then we have Sheldon Benjamin, and he kind of doesn't fit as much in with the rest of them because he is Jake Hager, I suppose, but Jake Hager has been a free agent for far less a time than Shelton has been. Which is like these people that are free agents that just aren't really going anywhere.
And maybe this would be for another week, but in terms of like people who I would want to just remove because I think that nothing is happening with them, it's like I think that Shelton is one that I would do that for, but I think I'd definitely do it for Jake Hager too. I think I'm ready to kind of have the discussion on Jake Hager because I don't know if he's going to go anywhere else.
Well, I think that's been maybe like 2 or 3 weeks so far. So that's why I'm apprehensive on Jake Hager to have that discussion yet. But I think that uh, yeah, it hasn't been enough time. I feel like for to see if he's going to go anywhere or not go anywhere.
Mm.
Whereas I think that Shelton Benjamin, it's getting towards that moment for him with the clock ticking. So
I think that's yeah.
so
That'll
yeah.
work.
I also wanted to mention that with the AEW media rights thing that well, there were some people that thought this past week that they were going to announce the media rights, and that didn't happen. I
No.
I really think that things are going to be waiting on the NBA.
I think, yeah, I think ultimately, and I think that should happen soon because obviously the NBA wanted to announce their big deals like during the NBA finals, and that just didn't happen because of all WBD threatening lawsuits and things like that. I think they're gonna try to get this thing hashed out soon.
Yeah,
They
my
might have already done. I don't know.
yeah. So WBD like had the right to do a counteroffer for the package that is right now NBC is bidding on. Um,
Well,
and
I
then
think the issue is that package doesn't exist anymore in terms of like what the original deal was because they've chopped stuff up.
well, yeah. So then this next the next level of rumor was that they're going to try to create a fourth package instead of just having three packages to have a fourth package. So like ESPN's keeping their own the package that they've always had, and then the current Warner Brothers package is going to Amazon. Or going no, it's going to
Going
NBC.
to NBCU.
And then the third package that was creating out of nowhere or with select games for the playoffs was being created for Amazon. Um, and
Right.
then
I think that was WBD's argument that the package that they had that went to NBCU is not necessarily just that package anymore, since now there's this third package, and parts of of both packages were taken to make this one. So there's no particular reason why they need to necessarily just be, you know, have the ability to match the that one package. Since it's not none of those packages exist the same way they did at the time of that contract. So it's a messy situation in
yeah,
terms of like being able to uh work this out in litigation,
yeah, so
which is why people think that they're probably going to cut up like a fourth package somehow for WBD just because going through the lawsuit's going to be a problem.
well, yeah, so that the fourth package is also hinging on a court case that's happening right now, not by WBD, but a bankruptcy court case, which has been reported by a number of outlets, including ESPN, about Diamond Sports Group that you might have as your regional sports network called Bally Sports. They used to be the Fox Sports networks. They got sold then partially to Sinclair Broadcasting and reorganized as Bally Sports. They're bankrupt. They're going through bankruptcy court. And if the bankruptcy court rules that they need to cease operations, then the rights to half of the team's local sports packages are going to revert to the teams. And that court case is happening. It's set for the end of July, the last 2 days of July. So that's why I think things are getting delayed. Is because so first off, WBD is trying to like do a counter bid and create a fourth package, sure, and they're doing their own litigation. But on the other side of things, there's this case that's happening that might get the NBA rights to more of their games again, which might like just make everything fine for making a fourth package for WBD because then they'll have more games and they'll be able to easily create a fourth package without like taking pieces from everybody else. So the reason why we're kind of bringing up the NBA angle of this is obviously it might cause a domino effect for AEW one way or the other. Especially if Warner Brothers can't keep the NBA, then there will be a lot more. They'll probably feel a lot stronger about wanting to keep AEW.
Yes.
But also at the same time, we have a second ticking clock of the AEW's exclusive rights window, which I've seen some people say is ending at the end of July. or sometime during July that the exclusive window will be ending, which means that this is all happening at the same time, and the timelines might not be lining up perfectly for Warner Brothers with either of these rights battles.
It's going to take a little while to see how this hashes out, but I still think the NBA one's going to before the end of the summer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like that's something that was brought up in a bunch of these articles is that um, the Diamond Sports Group was wanting to delay the case further and further because then they just keep the rights essentially because the case is pending for the next season of NBA NHL. Um, the NBA and NHL were like, this is crazy because by the current ruling that's suspended right now, we are supposed to get the rights back now. Like, for the next season, we're supposed to have our rights back for all of our teams. And if you keep delaying, it makes it so that it's smaller and smaller of a window for us to figure out where these teams' games are going to get broadcast if you guys don't exist anymore. Which might hurt the Diamond Sports Group argument in the bankruptcy court. But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that's like there's so many ticking clocks that are going on right now. That I think that it's going to it'll be very interesting once all of this gets settled. And I don't think that we'll know until August or September how it all gets settled. But it will be interesting to look back and see what all the backroom discussions were with the NBA, with Warner Brothers, with all these media package deals that are going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's WrestleWatch for this week.
Yeah.
uh,
That's it.
yeah. So
All right. So we'll come back again next week and talk about everything that happened in the upcoming week, which I anticipate that we'll probably have some things to discuss. So until then, I'm Doug.
and I'm Ryan. Make sure to be subscribed to WrestleWatch on whatever platform you like. Um, we have the YouTubes, we have the Twitters, we have everywhere else. So we hope that you've had a good time listening, and yeah, stay excellent to each other.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Okay, see ya. And we are out.
All right.
Yeah, so that was a little longer than usual, but